The first thing I wanted to review with you was how you guys you and Helen got involved in that class.
Class itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
What? How long ago was that?
That was 1998. There was a flyer or whatever sent around, or else we were down at Thanksgiving Point and noticed that they were going to have some classes. And I don't remember exactly how we were notified, to be honest with you. But boy, we signed up in a hurry.
Was it how long was it?
Just 6 weeks.
6 weeks.
Oh.
And how was it? Pretty well attended.
There were about 15 of us in the class.
Did you know the person before? Did you know anything about him? And what? Tell me his name again.
Jacob Metleiter.
Metleiter. What did you learn about him after you started attending the class?
Well, that he had basically started, once he got his education, in flowers. And he had, for about 15 years, a big flower business in Loma Linda, California. He developed 9 different varieties of carnations. It was quite interesting.
Oh, really?
But when he learned, his main theory or thought was, everything grows, needs certain things. Just like us. We need a variety of food, we need a certain percentage of what we have to be healthy. And he studied for years and found out there are 16 elements that a plant needs to really thrive and do well.
And are most of those part of the soil, or is he talking about things such as sunlight?
Most of them originally were all from the soil. But when you use the same property or the same area for 20, 25 years, those things are taken out. He says it's just like a checking account in the bank. He said if you don't put deposits in, it gets drained.
And he's talking about the soil.
Soil's the same thing, yeah. And the worst thing that happens basically is the leaching by the rain, by water. It just goes all out. He says there's more of that in the ocean than they can mine out. It goes in faster than they can mine it out. But that's what's happened to the soils. They get depleted because of the growth of the plants, because of the rainfall and so forth.
And you'd mentioned that he was actually involved in helping get the soils in shape at Thanksgiving Point. I think you said something about how that was just a big clay pit.
We knew Brother Fox. He was in our class, the one that owned that property. And it was all clay. They had tried for years to even put alfalfa or any kind of anything of a productive thing for a farm. He couldn't do a thing. He says, this ground is no good. You cannot grow anything here. He told him that.
And then this other gentleman, Mittleiter?
Dr. Mittleiter.
Did he come in and help somehow?
Yeah. They asked him to do a demonstration. I think President Ashton did that, who owned, Thanksgiving Point. He came in and one summer made the most beautiful garden you'd ever seen in your life on that property.
And this was before they had started the big gardens and everything like that?
Right. They were just getting started.
Yeah.
But what he convinced them and showed them was, if you give the nutrients those plants need, they'll grow anywhere, in any kind of soil. And he's proven it all over the world. He's been to about 19 countries and had a garden in every one of them. Russia was the most interesting because he was there for about 9 years.
And I vaguely recall you saying something about the Russia deal. What was...
Yeah. Well, there's an article that is in our paperwork here of a news article from a reporter in Russia who said, if you go along, he didn't say I-15 or whatever, but if you go to this certain area, he said there's a garden that is so beautiful, it's unbelievable. And right next to it is where we've been growing for years. He's so pathetic. We ought to read it. You already have put that in there. But they could not believe. They tried to disprove him for 9 years. They tested everything that came out of that garden.
And this is in Russia?
In Russia. And that was during the Cold War. Everything he grew was better than anything they produced. and they couldn't find a thing wrong with it.
And was he there on a specific
He just volunteered to go.
volunteer to go?
Yeah.
And
Same with Okinawa and Guam and in all these other countries. What he did, he stopped his flower business. I guess he made the money he needed to make. He was a Seventh-day Adventist. He said, anybody in the world can grow food. He said, I'm going to show them. And he just went out on
almost a mission.
a mission, self-appointed mission.
Yeah. So tell me more about his personal life. You mentioned that he was a Seventh-day Adventist.
A very spiritual man.
Was he?
He says in there, he says, anything I've done and done well, don't give me credit, give it credit to God. But he said, I have learned what needs the plants need and how much of each they need. So he developed this pardon me, formula or fertilizer, if you will, that gives to them exactly what they need. And boy, if you put that on, in fact, I mentioned to you before, down Thanksgiving Point, they put it on the on the golf course when they started that golf course. And they had to quit doing it. They said they had to cut that golf course nearly 3 times a week. It grew so well and so beautiful. They loved it, but it wasn't practical.
Yeah.
But that's what he has done. He's developed what the plants need and given them that.
He lived in Salt Lake for like 20
years. Huh? Yeah, after California, he came here.
Okay.
One of his first and best projects was done with a sandy stake. They had a great big church farm, church garden, and let him come in and show him how to do it. Oh, it got praise all over the place. It was amazing what he did. But then after he did this project in Thanksgiving Point, he offered to give classes to those that would be interested, and that's how we got involved.
Had he been doing classes when you guys signed
You know,
up, or were you the first class?
Well, we were the first class in this area.
Okay.
He'd been doing it all over the world, really.
Okay. And then I recall that you said something about how your class would go around and tour each other's garden work.
Toward the end of the class, see, we had we had 2 or 3 hours a week. I can't remember what it was in class, and then we were to come home, build our garden, plant our seeds, and do everything he had told us and instructed us to do. And then started using the nutrients that he said they had to have. And so on the last week of our training, we went to everybody's home where they put it. I was so pleased with mine. I thought, it looked so great. He was doing beautiful. And he wasn't there 2 minutes. He says, these cucumbers got a problem. They look pretty to me. He said they need magnesium. No, molybdenum, can't say it. Went to his truck, got a little bag, gave it to my wife, and says, now, for 3 times, put a little bit, spoonful on that entire row. You couldn't believe the difference.
Really?
Oh, it was amazing. He can look at any plant, any flower that grows and tell you what it needs. He literally could. Brilliant man.
And he's passed away.
He's now passed away, yes.
And I think he's written a number of books.
Oh, he had written 5 books before we ever started at the garden there. But the one fellow that was with us was Jim Kennard. Jim Kennard decided he wanted to be his assistant and go with him to other countries. And Jim is the one that is now moving this forward. It's called Food for Everyone.
Okay.
And he tells everybody how to do it, and how to put the nutrients on, and where to put them, and when and why. And it works.
I wanted to ask you, remind me about your mission, because...
I better tell you, this Jim Kennard that was in the class with us tried to get a hold of me one day to ask me some questions, and my son realized he was trying to get a hold of me. He said, well, Dad's over in Turkey on a mission. He's in a mission in Turkey? How do I get a hold of him? And he got on the internet real quick and talked to my wife, because I don't do anything on a computer. He said, do you think there's a possibility if I were to come to Turkey we could do a demonstration garden. And it was just timing. It was great because we served in the Air Force Language Training School, but it was off for the summer. We couldn't proselyte. We needed something to do, and that just timing was perfect. I said, well, I'll see what I can do, and called the mission president and talked to the local people, and we got a piece of ground. And they said, sure, we'll plow it up for you. But they were dubious as could be, really dubious. It was an area where they do shrubs for the whole city. But anyway, they were willing to let us take a piece.
How big was it? A couple acres or an acre? Or?
Oh, it was probably an acre and a half. We had, like I said, out here I have 10 30-foot rows. There we had 39.
Wow.
30
and
rows.
And so prior to him coming out, were you guys working on that ground to do a garden? Or?
Well, we got all permission to get, we had to go to the Minister of Agriculture over that entire area. He was the one that had to prove it. He didn't know a word of English. I didn't know a word of Turkish. But we had a man that was willing to interpret for us. And he kind of smiled. Yeah, well, you can have this. He says, we'll plow it for you. And they went through with the plow. And we had clumps. You can't imagine how big they were. We had to break them all up, and we had to do all this work to get it prepared so we could plant it. And so I had started on that when Jim came. And so when Jim came, the two of us got together, and we were hoping and we thought that the people that worked there would help us. They wouldn't touch it. We find out they were afraid that if they did, they'd lose their jobs.
How so? What?
I don't know.
What kind of jobs?
Well, they had engineering experience in planting shrubs and trees and things to put around the city buildings and so forth. But a farmer that raised food was the lowest category in Turkey. That man's looked down on like you can't believe. It's the most menial, is that the right word, job there was. And they didn't want to be caught doing that kind of thing. So they were willing to watch us. Jim taught a few classes in the building they had there for us to show them and teach them what we were doing. But they wouldn't lend a hand at all. So it was just the two of us, my wife. We just produced that garden until it was unreal. It was amazing.
And did you do that for just one season, or did you?
Oh yeah, just in fact we didn't even get through. We just barely started harvesting. It was time for our mission to be completed. They didn't send anybody to replace us, so they had to dissolve the branch and the whole bit when we left.
And what were some people saying about the garden? Were you guys getting comments about?
I think I told you about the corn. Jim brought some sweet corn that we planted. He brought it from the United States. It was supposed to be harvested within about 75 days. Within 60 days, we had corn. And of course, we distributed it. All people that worked there, we just gave it to them. And they came back over and over again. Did you plant that with sugar? Did you do that with sugar? Helen would give them samples. We would cook, she would boil it and give it to them on our, you might call it a pea day, but it was a special day they had where they had a break. They said, how much sugar did you put in? They could not believe
how good it was.
How good, because over there, the only kind of corn they know is field corn. And it's not too good to eat. But, oh yeah, they loved everything we grew there. They just loved it. There was one man there that had a family of 9 children. And he wasn't educated like they were, but he was a worker for them. And we just gave him all produce he wanted. Boy, did he love it. He couldn't say enough about it. Couldn't get enough of it. It was amazing.
When did you and Helen serve there again?
And in 2001, 99 and 2000.
Yeah. Another thing I was kind of surprised to hear, Darrell, is I've always figured you're the master gardener, but you've told me a couple times.
I am a master of getting rid of weeds. All the rest was my wife. I showed you her loose leaf of notes. She took notes in that class. I just sat there and listened. But she told me what and when and where, and I did it, and it worked. But she was the she's the mastermind of my gardens, I'll tell you. But I know how to get rid of weeds, I'll tell you that. That's my expertise.
Well, she's passed away about what, a
A year ago, February.
year ago, and you're going to be able to keep the garden going. You
Oh
think
yeah, I learned enough. I can keep it going. Last year I had a good garden without her. It wasn't as good though, I'll tell you that.
Yeah.
But she would, for example, trim or prune, call it what you want, the tomato plants. Because you have to get rid of suckers and you have to grow them a certain way and they climb up the vines. Oh, they do beautifully. But I didn't trim them, I didn't prune them. I had nice tomatoes, but it didn't look like, it didn't do what could have done if I'd have taken care of it.
So would she, I assume the two of you would work out in the garden together?
Mm-hmm. Some. She didn't do a lot of weeding, but she sure looked at the plants and said, oh, I think we better put a little more fertilizer right here. And she just knew what had to happen.
And the notebook there, you showed me some of her notes. They look pretty meticulous.
Oh, yeah, she was good at taking notes. I don't know if she did a lot of shorthand here, but most of the notes she took in shorthand at the class. And then she'd come home and either type them or write them.
Wow.
Okay, she's very good at shorthand.
One of the things that I've asked, are you willing to have people call you and come over
You bet.
and
Anybody wants to.
you'll show them what
I'm doing.
you're doing?
What I do and how I do it.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll be glad to tell them.
Good.